Towards the end of World War II, Nazi leader Adolf Hitler was hiding underground in Berlin, while Soviet soldiers searched for him on the streets above. He had just married his longtime mistress, Eva Braun, and completed his last will and testament. However, one day later, Hitler received word that his Italian counterpart, Mussolini, and his mistress had been killed, and their bodies dragged through the streets of Italy. Knowing his time was coming to an end, he made the decision and watched his wife of a day swallow a cyanide capsule before shooting himself in the head. But was that really the end of Hitler's story? Or was it just another cover-up? Buckle up and get comfy, because this video will have you questioning everything. Today we're discussing the theories surrounding the escape of Adolf Hitler. When the death of Hitler was announced, it wasn't by the victors of the war, but by Germany themselves. News of the Führer's death played out on the radio stations across Germany, and then the world. But throughout the years, this conspiracy has been kept alive by the fact that nobody ever saw Hitler's body. Supposedly, after his suicide, Hitler and Eva were buried in shallow graves and set alight. But were they really? Or was this a ruse to allow for the pair to leave the country in disguise? During the war and even today, there have been accounts of high-profile political figures using body doubles. Churchill, Mussolini, and Hitler all made use of doubles throughout the war. It was suggested that during Hitler's last days in the bunker, he made meticulous plans with his senior staff to stage his suicide, and whilst the world celebrated his death, flee to Argentina. 2 months after the German defeat and the end of the war, on May 8, 1945, the German U-boat U-530 arrived at the Argentine naval base at Mar del Plata near Buenos Aires on the morning of July 10th. Rumors circulated that it had transported Martin Bormann, Hitler, and Eva Braun to Patagonia, or Antarctica, before arriving at Mar del Plata. A week later, Ladislas Sabo, a Hungarian exile living in Argentina, published a thorough account of how Hitler and his group allegedly fled Germany in a local newspaper. Versions of the story immediately circulated around the world and were published in numerous newspapers. Despite this sounding like just another conspiracy, it is true that at the close of the war, a small number of senior Nazis made their way to South America, where they were given asylum by sympathetic countries. Joseph Mengele, the Angel of Death, a physician who conducted experiments on the inmates in the Auschwitz concentration camp, is one of the most well-known escapees. Mengele passed away in Brazil in 1979 without ever facing charges. One of the main architects of the Holocaust, Adolf Eichmann, also escaped to Argentina after the conflict. Unlike Mengele, he was found by Israel's Mossad security agency. They took Eichmann from Buenos Aires to Israel, where he was prosecuted for his crimes and executed by hanging in 1962. Could Hitler have been hiding out in South America? Theorists up until 2018 suggested that the advanced submarine U-3523 had been carrying the Nazi leader. The submarine was allegedly sunk by Danish forces, but failed to find the wreckage, alongside a declassified CIA document that suggested Hitler was in Argentina, gave rise to this theory. However, the submarine was discovered in 2018, with no trace that the Führer had ever been inside. But that doesn't mean he couldn't have fled somewhere else. These are some of the theories as to where he could be hiding. Antarctica. During Hitler's time as leader of the Nazi Party, several secret expeditions were made to the continent of Antarctica. Under the guise of hunting for margarine fat, Hitler sent the head of the German Air Force, Hermann Göring. Germany supposedly thought it had a right to claim a portion of Antarctica as its own, so they traveled there to claim land. But why would they want to claim land so off from their own country and in such a vastly different climate? Some thought it was a test to determine if a long-term future could be envisioned. It's believed that during this time, the Nazis established a secret Aryan colony on the disused continent. According to this theory, underground schools, pharmacies, shops, hospitals, and living spaces were established through a warren of secret tunnels below the frosty surface. Scaled-down versions of German cities were built underground, and by the time Hitler had lost the war, all he needed to do was move in. It's claimed that inside an ice cave, relics from the Third Reich and DNA samples of Hitler and Eva were found. But in the recent years, the buzz around this theory has died down, replaced instead with people believing that Antarctica was merely a stop along the way, not the final destination. With theorists suggesting that the whole purpose of Nazi explorations to Antarctica was to search for a portal, one that will transport you within the Earth. Which brings us to our next theory. Agartha. Hollow Earth, or more commonly known as Agartha, which if you're interested, you can click on the link above, was the supposed secret second world lying miles beneath our own, has been contested for hundreds of years. From the Greeks to the Buddhists, this hidden metropolis is said to inhabit highly developed races of humans and aliens who live in peace together. Across the world, there are said to be many different portals, or entrances to Agartha, with Antarctica just being one of them. Is it possible that Hitler really did discover the entrance of this mythical kingdom? Some believe so. The Hollow Earth Research Society in Canada firmly believe that not only has the Nazi leader set up a base down there, but that he is still alive. Agartha theorists state that the kingdom came to be after the population on Earth realized that the sun made them age too quickly, dying less than 100 years old. This population sought refuge underground and soon found that without exposure to the sun, they could live for hundreds of years. However, as compelling as that sounds, not much evidence of this could be found, leading us to our next place, which Hitler could be hiding out at. The Baltic Island. Hitler's Nazis accepted several occult practices and beliefs, including astrology, Nostradamus prophecies, and the hollow inverted Earth theory, or Hallwelttheorie, to arrive at the odd conclusion that they were destined to rule the world. They thought that our surface layer was on the interior of a concave Earth. Therefore, Hitler sent an expedition to the Baltic island of Rügen to spy on the British Navy. Large telescoping cameras and Dr. Heinz Fischer were also part of the mission. Instead of aiming his cameras across the sea, Fischer accomplished this by peering through the atmosphere at the Atlantic Ocean. The trip didn't get any sort of result, but the fact that Hitler and the Nazis were so convinced of this theory makes conspiracists alike question whether he was planning to hide out there for his eventual escape. However, some people weren't convinced, and another theory surfaced. Space. Despite the Nazis' defeat in World War II, they left the conflict with a reputation for advanced armaments that borders on fiction. The V-line of terror weapons, which included the V-1 cruise missile and V-2 ballistic missile, made for terrifying, albeit strategically dubious, weaponry. The Luftwaffe also regularly flew fighter jets in combat, before the Allies did. But the strangest purported weapon the Nazis were said to have created was none other than an anti-gravity UFO, piloted by Hitler's personal medium, Maria Orsic. With little evidence except for markings, which could be anything, is said to be Nazi statues. Theorists believe that on the day Germany surrendered, Hitler and his cohort fled into outer space to live out the rest of their days, over on the dark side of the moon. Nazism and different alien races, including Vril and Thule societies, have been thrown about since Hitler's supposed death, with some suggesting that Hitler sought refuge within these ancient alien societies, leaving Earth and starting a new life after the end of the war. This theory is further backed up with accidental leaks of photos on the moon, showing a base of some kind. And Neil Armstrong has also been documented saying that during the moon landing, there was something else, or perhaps someone else already on the moon. So, what do you think? Is it plausible that Hitler really died in that bunker? Could a hateful narcissist such as the leader of the Nazi Party really resort to suicide? Or did he escape and succeed at fooling the world with one of the biggest cover-ups till date?